in this giant plastic bubble room my entire life because I was born with no immunities. Oh, I'm the luckiest boy in the world. Between my mom, Bubble, and Lysol, I pretty much had everything I ever wanted. Well, until one day. Thought bubble.
So you talked a little bit earlier on about like how you found your script that you used. You were watching a movie and you thought it could work. What's like the process you usually go through in finding a good script that works? Is it just entertainment you like, or do you search it out, or how do you find those scripts that you end up using in your piece?
Sure. So if I think through all of the pieces I did, because I did every year I did between 2 and 4 pieces. I think I never did 5. That was great. That would have been crazy. 5? I think I did 5 my senior year. Obviously, in different events. But I did my junior year and my senior year. I did 2 different HIs. One, both years that didn't work, and one that ultimately worked. So I'll talk to HI just because it's what I did really well in. I did very well in the activity the first years that I did it. And I thought that I should pick things that mirrored the pieces I had already done in order to replicate that success, which is a very bad idea, because then you will just do the same performance. And I didn't realize that. And I thought that would be great. So I literally, my junior year, took my sophomore year HI and tried to plop it on top of Jurassic Park. So I did Jurassic Park as an HI for a bit, and it was weird. And people liked it. I don't know. People laughed at it, that's for sure. And I had all these really cool ideas of ways to make it look like there was a dinosaur in the room, through like turning my back around and holding my arm up like this, different things. Ultimately, it was just, I didn't love the piece. I didn't have any sort of connection to it. It had no message that I really linked and latched onto. So it didn't work because I hated doing it. And I think that that's my biggest advice, is just find something that you like. Another good example, my senior year I cut probably 5 HIs. Like 5 or 6 of them. I cut Mrs. Doubtfire, Groundhog Day, The Emperor's New Groove, a book called Dear Girls Above Me, which I performed. Those other 3 I didn't do. I just cut them and then threw them away. A book about a guy who hears the voices of the girls who live above him called Dear Girls Above Me, which I did do and hated, and then Defending Your Life. So I cycled through things pretty quickly if I didn't like them, and I found that I, a lot of the time, would let the idea of competitive success filter into what I was picking, and I think that that's a very poor plan. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. Don't pick things because they have done well in the past. Don't pick things because you think they will do well. Pick things because you like them and you think you might like performing them. So I definitely watched a lot of things. I watched too many movies, bought too many movies because things that were obscure weren't on Netflix and I had to pay for them. So like Defending Your Life isn't on Netflix. I had to buy it. I had to buy Bubble Boy. Originally it was on Netflix, which is how I was exposed to it, funny enough. I watched it the summer before my junior year, just like because it was a fun, weird thing that showed up, and I thought, this might be a good HI, and then I thought, no one will believe I'm in a plastic bubble for 10 minutes. So I threw it away and did Jurassic Park, and then I asked a friend to recommend pieces, and he recommended it. A friend who had graduated recommended it, and I said, that's so funny. I thought about doing it and think it won't work. And he said, no, it'll work. It's really good. So I thought about it again and decided to do it. So I think being literate, as dumb as it may seem, being able to have a conversation like that where someone brings up something and you say, oh, I've seen that, and I didn't think it would work, so someone can talk about it, and thoroughly vetting options like that. If someone brings up something and you haven't seen it, go watch it, rather than reading a synopsis and throwing it away. Because the more you watch, the more you see, the more you just become familiar with story structure, the more you're able to speak to those things and talk about pieces of literature, not just in this context, but just generally. Because of COVID-19, I might just be done with college because my school runs on a quarter system, but I'm studying film, and it's a thing that I became really familiar with because of speech and debate, and I don't think I would have studied it were it not for speech and debate, because I just became so in love with the idea of telling stories and how they're told, and how they're told visually. So I think that's part of it, is just being literate. If you think you want to do plays for pieces, read a bunch of plays. If you want to use movies or watch a bunch of movies, the hard thing comes with books. Books take a lot more time to read, but if you want to do a book, read more than one book. You know what I mean? Don't pick something and then read it. Read it and then pick it. I think that's really important. Yeah.
That makes sense. So when you talk about like all the literature you're consuming and possibly the books, when you're going through them, are you thinking like this is a character that I could do, or are you more thinking of it this is a piece that I connect with and I can learn to do the characters? Like, which one comes first? Like the knowledge that you can physically do this character or be this character or do this voice, or is it more like connecting with the piece and then learning how to be the character?
Totally. I would say that it should definitely be the piece and then the characters. The reason why most of the pieces that I want, the two that I did, Jurassic Park and Dear Girls Above Me, the two things that I threw away my junior and senior year to pick other pieces, both times I picked them because I thought that there was fun characters that I could do and fun things that I could do. Pick the piece and then tackle the hurdle of how do I not have two people on buses for the climax of my piece. You know what I mean? Like, if you... it's so much more interesting to watch someone who clearly solved a problem than vetted everything and just picked the easiest thing. Because the easiest thing is probably going to be a piece that's written for speech and debate or a piece written by Don Zolinos. Those things are easy. They will work. They have the characters lined out. They will tell you that a girl is half lizard, or a girl doesn't have a leg, or a boy is drooling the whole time or has a lisp. They'll tell you those things and make it really easy for you, but then the other people that do it will do it the same way, and it will start to feel unoriginal even if you come to those conclusions all on your own. If you pick literature purely because it's easy, chances are other people will find it easy and other people will do it. So it's just more interesting, odds-wise, that you will be the only person doing the thing you're doing if you pick the piece because you personally find it interesting and then work through how to perform it. But also, just in terms of creating a performance, it's so much more interesting to watch a person who clearly, because they believe that what they're doing is funny or interesting or touching or whatever, because they believe it, it's so much more interesting to watch. I don't know if I got these comments on ballots a lot when I was a junior or senior, and I'm really sad that I didn't, because I think I lost a little bit of something. But I would get comments on ballots when I started doing the activity that were like, I can tell you really like doing this. I can tell you find your jokes funny. And there's something about that that I think oftentimes gets lost because people are thinking about a competition. And I get it, and it's weird that someone who, won the thing is saying, don't worry about winning it, because I was so stressed. And anyone who knew me during those years of doing speech and debate can tell you that I practiced more than anyone, I was worried more than anyone, I knew everyone's, scores, I could list off everything that I had done, down to, each set of 3 scores in rounds. I could tell you, because I was so mathematical about it. I knew everything I needed to do to win. And I lost some of that, I love this. And I remember my senior year, people, I would get ballots that would say something, I would say, no, I'm doing this because I want to do it. One of the things that I did my senior year that like sometimes I would get ballots that were like, that's weird, or there's like a tour guide in my senior year piece who is based like as just an impersonation of Kristen Wiig's Target Lady character, because I love that character and thought it would be a fun reference for people if they got it, and if they didn't get it, it still worked. One of my number one pet peeves is when people like throw in a Donald Trump impersonation just to have it there. If it works, do it, but now everyone's just throwing them in and they make no sense to the piece. But I thought it makes sense in this context, it works for the piece, but it also was just something I thought was fun and really enjoyed doing the impersonation. And I had someone right before Nationals be like, well, that's just Target Lady. And I was like, yeah, that's the point. You got it. And they're like, no, my district used to do these like Nationals prep things that were helpful in some regard, but people told me like my intro for my senior year wouldn't work. People would find it offensive. They told me that to get rid of, they were like, get rid of all of the things that people now tell me they loved. And I was like, I'm not going to get rid of this because you tell me it doesn't work. I'm keeping it because I think it works and because I love it. And I think that's why it was successful. Yes, it was clean. Yes, I performed well, whatever. But I think that the minutia, the choices, the choice to do Target Lady, anyone can choose that, but it's a small choice. I could have picked another character and still performed well. I still had all of those hard skills, but choosing those things, even if people didn't find them funny, I loved them, and I think that's what gives life to a performance, is when you can tell that someone loves it. Because at the end of the day, the reason you do this activity, I would hope, is because you want to say something that you believe in. And if none of the performance is generated by you, and it's just like, I'm doing these things because I think people will laugh at them, I don't think it has the same level of personalization. And that's that was something that I always believed in. I never wanted to do, I remember at least my junior year, I was searching for pieces and I was like, I will not do something someone else has ever done. I don't want anyone to think, oh, someone else did that. Which is dumb. It means nothing. And my senior year I did a DI that people had done before, but I never thought they did it the right way. I had a real love for the piece and I really wanted to do it. So I did it against a lot of people saying, oh, well, this is really well known and people have done it. And I said, no, but they haven't done it right. So I really wanted to do it the right way. Right for me, right the way I think it should be done, because I loved the literature. So it was a rule that I ultimately broke, but I set for myself because I think what I was really getting at was originality. I think that it's king in this activity. Someone who is original will always beat out someone who is of the same level of talent but did something that everyone else is doing.
Okay, and so I've really enjoyed talking with you, but the final question of today's interview is, what would you like to say to the speech and debate community if you could just say something to everyone who is part of this activity?
Sure. It's a hard question, but I think my biggest regrets competitively might be not really delving in and saying enough, not really obviously I've grown a lot as a person, and if I've looked back at my HIs, I'm like, oh, I could have just had one more sentence that really got at the point, because I knew them. I had thought about all of the ways that my pieces were relevant to the world and relevant to me, but I never really said them in introductions, and I wish I had dug my heels in a bit more, and said a little bit more. And just because I think intros are kind of a throwaway even when they're really funny. We don't pay attention to them a lot. So for interp and kids, just dig your heels in a bit. But for everyone, have fun. I was so anxious and so worried about competitive success that it almost probably hindered some of my successes. I very rarely like won final rounds, which was like the bane of my existence. And I think that was because I was so nervous about the final rounds that I ultimately gave subpar performances. So number one, just let it go. It's an activity. You will get a lot out of it regardless of a trophy. But also, again, back to what I said, like, say things that matter to you. I think, especially going back to judge now, I can tell the people who really believe in the thing that they're saying and doing or piece they're performing, even if it's not explicitly stated. Like, you don't have to talk about your tragic story that relates to your oratory in order for us to believe that you care about it. But if you perform it like you care about it and everything is in there because you want to say it, it reads in a way that telling dumb jokes, I mean, I don't want to like trash people, but like you can tell when someone is telling a joke because they are just like, I needed a joke here, I needed a laugh, you know what I mean, like especially in oratory rounds or I mean, really good extempors will throw in a joke and it's great because it lightens the political load that you're putting on judges, and you say like, oh, it's okay to like take a break and just laugh. But you can tell when someone's telling a joke just because it serves the purpose of competition versus or telling a story, oratory, extem, public address events, because it just serves the purpose, versus when they believe in it and they think it's funny or think it's an interesting story. So pick things that are interesting, get specific. My coach, my first year of the activity, I loved her. She was the best. She ultimately left my school. It was very sad. Her one note for me was always be more specific. Specificity is the most important thing. And most of the time she was talking about the technical elements of speech and debate, like physical specificity or like vocal specificity. How do I get these characters more specific? How do I get this space more specific? But I think it relates even more to the messages. I would much rather watch someone talk specifically about why they think that, oh God, I'll pick a random example. I'm drinking iced tea. Why they think iced tea is the best beverage and why Teavana shouldn't have closed. Can you tell that I loved Teavana? Versus like, don't drink soda. Like these are dumb examples, but it's like if your message is like America needs to be healthier, like needs to drink healthier options. This is so outdated. This is like my childhood. Do you remember when they took soda out of vending machines in schools? But if transport yourself back to 2005 and that's the thing you want to say it more specifically than like no soda, because I'm sure that there were kids doing that oratory. Maybe not. It might have been irrelevant because truly most oratories are like wide branching topics of like, we need to learn to forgive. And it's like, great, I agree. No one's going to say no to that. No one is going to say, no, don't forgive people. You know? So it's actually argue something that can be argued, really dig your heels in, like really fight for what you believe in, fight for what you're saying. It should feel like a fight. It should feel like you're in there to really persuade people. And if you're telling people something that they already know or showing people something that they've already seen, I think that you're missing out on some of the fun of the activity, you know? Like, I think that there's so much fun in doing something and knowing that someone is listening to it or seeing it for the first time. Which is sort of why I wanted to do pieces that no one had done before. I wanted people to feel engaged and go, oh, I don't know this story. I don't know how it's going to end. But I had a friend who, my sophomore year, this is a very little tidbit of speech and debate history for people who don't know it. I had a friend who did so well. Ultimately, we both dropped in quarters at nationals in humor. But he did Charlotte's Web as an HI, and he ended by killing the spider. Like the new baby, you know how Charlotte dies and then her baby spider hatches? He then had like some random woman come and just like smack the spider, and it was the funniest joke I've ever seen. It was so fun and so smart and so out of left field, and everyone in the room was surprised every single time because no one knew that was going to happen because he was doing Charlotte's Web. You know what I mean? Like everyone knows Charlotte's Web, and he had lots of fun twists to it, but nothing compared to like completely changing the ending. And I mean, you can do that. Speech and debate allows you to do that. You can write your own ending in some respect if you just skip a plot point, or have someone just smack their hands. I think he said, "Ew, spider." And I'm sure that character said it. And we never had to like address it, so it's all legal in terms of cutting. But it was so different and interesting. And I think that a lot of that is lost sometimes because people are worried about being successful. Success will come when you pour your heart and mind into what you're doing. That is what I would say to the speech and debate community, I guess. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I will actually agree with you, and like you have many great points in there. I will add one thing. I heard this. I don't remember who it's from. No discussion is more boring in which everyone agrees. Like if you're just saying like, yeah, like hate is bad. Yeah, we all agree. Like yes, thank you. You're not adding anything,
Right.
Which is why like this is a little bit off topic, but in like congressional debate, which is the event I do,
Totally.
I don't try to go for like the easy argument. Like I always try to go from like an outside perspective. Like here's a new argument, or here this bill should pass. Well, since it's going to have to be debated on the negation, why don't we just have an interesting negation argument? I don't know. I just think that a lot of the times people go for the easy one, or I've actually seen where people just blatantly pander to the judges, and it's like, come on, like this is not what the activity is about. It's like ballots are important, and I think too often we just chase just like the perfect score of the trophy. But a lot of the times being able to like actually just share like an interesting opinion or something new, or like you said, walk in and never have heard about this topic before, I think that can be just as powerful as anything you're going to get by just winning to win.
Right.
At a Model UN tournament I went to, we all had to choose a country for climate change, and I actually chose Saudi Arabia because I was like, it's Saudi Arabia. And all the judges and all the students were like, oh, climate change, it's real and it's hurting people. And I was Saudi Arabia, and I was like, I don't think it is, and this is why, it's not. And I ended up winning because the judges at some point don't just want to see the same argument, the same speech. It's kind of like something new.
Yeah, especially things with Model UN, you're taking someone's perspective, not showing your own. So it's an assessment of how educated you are and how well you can argue. So of course, if you argued effectively that climate change doesn't exist, like that's impressive. I think that I would much rather, as a competitor back in the day, I would much rather have 5 people tell me something is great and one person give me like a 7 in a round than go straight 2s, Like I think it's, you don't want to be the 2 or the 3, you want to be the 1 or the 7. You know what I mean? Like be polarizing. Get people to like have an opinion of what you did. I think that was something that I was really proud of, especially my senior year, because I was doing an HI and a DI where I would consistently have people come up to me just to like talk about it. Like HI people would come up to me to talk about the performance and talk about like, oh, how did you do that moving walkway thing? Or whatever they would say. Sometimes they would talk about the movie and be like, that's a weird movie. Let's talk about it. And I'd talk about it. But I did I did The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is a lovely book, also a lovely play, really wonderful, something that I just did the play at school. I love it. Like it is something that I cared so deeply about. And I would have people come up to me and just talk. It's about Mark Haddon, the author, never explicitly state, and he makes this very clear in interviews and also, in the book, he never explicitly states that the character is on the autism spectrum, because he says it's a book about difference, not disability, which I think is, the whole point of the book, and was sort of my thesis of the performance. But what was I saying? I loved it so much that people would come up to me and just talk about, like, their brother who's on the spectrum. And it was such an interesting way of interacting with speech and debate that I didn't really have until my senior year, unfortunately. And I wish I had. I'm sure people who do, like, oratory, where it's, or any really persuasive speaking event where you're putting your opinions out there a bit more, I'm sure those conversations are had a bit more. But it wasn't until I picked something just because I loved it. And when I picked Defending Your Life partially because I thought it was good. I thought it would work. And I picked Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime in spite of people advising me that it might not be competitively successful because it had been done so much. And that was when I had those sorts of interactions with people, because I cared about it and because it said something. So I think that will bolster your connection to what you're doing and will probably make you more successful, but it will also make the activity so much more interesting. I can't imagine walking into rooms and just knowing that people will be, like, at best or worst, ambivalent about what I did. I don't think that that's the spirit of the activity, honestly. That's why people who do PF have to argue affirmative and negative points, no matter, you have to be prepared to do either, because you have to be able to fight for either. And it should challenge you. Obviously I didn't do the activity, don't care about what I did. I never did PF. I did Congress once, but it's so much more interesting to have to challenge yourself to say something provocative, and it forces the people judging, who are just parents usually, or coaches, to sort of think about things in a new way. It is a really insular community. The people who judge speech and debate judge it because they are affiliated with speech and debate. It doesn't go a lot of places. You know what I mean? Like, speech and debate doesn't bleed out. There's not a lot of network that it bleeds out into until the later stages of it, of, like, people watching final rounds on YouTube because it's just a fun thing to watch, or they went to a few speech and debate tournaments and then don't do it anymore. But for the most part, the people who are watching it are people who know what they're getting into. If they're judging, like, the second or third time. First time judges have no idea. But after you've judged once, you kind of know what you're going to get into, and then it's just a thing that you watched in a room. Because most of the time it's just people saying, like, I think we should forgive people, and performing scripts by Don Zolaitis. And those things don't, they don't change your brain. They're fun, and I think speech and debate should sort of have that essence as well, especially HI. It should have that essence of, like, oh, this comedy gives you some sort of relief and you can laugh about things. But I don't know. I think that the core essence of the activity is saying things that matter to you. And I'm glad you sort of agree with me, because I think it's super important.
Yeah, totally. Well, I want to wrap this interview up. Thank you so much for accepting this interview and sharing your wisdom about speech and debate. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's awesome what you're doing. I still talk to my old speech and debate coach, who's in her mid-20s, and she always thinks about doing a podcast or a YouTube show because she wants people to learn from what we learned and what other people learned, and I think it's great that you're doing this. It's so cool. I wish I had done it. Good idea. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You're good to stop your recording.
Cool.